Bovine growth hormone was the flagship product of Monsanto, our friends at Monsanto. And the idea was it's basically a steroid that you give, a growth hormone that you give to dairy cows. The idea was basically to take your least productive dairy cows, zap them with this hormone, they produce more milk, they burn out quicker, but you get more milk. So a very cruel and very mechanistic way to think about your dairy cows. You know, take your weakest ones, give them the steroid, they'll produce more milk, you make some money, and then of course you'll burn them out. It was used a lot in the 1990s. But more and more consumers heard about it. You know, we had this great food movement that said we do not want to buy dairy products that are derived from cows that have been treated with BGH, bovine growth hormone. And more labels popped up, and so Monsanto then sued, and it said, you know, it said to anybody who's trying to label it, you can't label it. They went to court, they went to federal court, and they lost. And the court said, no, label's accurate, people have the right to know. So guess what? Monsanto sold the product. BGH is no longer a Monsanto product. They lost their flagship product. They sold it to Elanco. It's not used all that much anymore. So it's really not a major problem anymore, but you know, you certainly want to stick with organic, and you certainly want to stick with people who say no BGH. But again, it's a real victory story for the food movement and those who said, you know what, we're not going to let you do this to these dairy cows. We're not going to buy food that's based in that kind of cruelty that causes laminitis and mastitis and all these terrible things with cows. So it's really great. It's a really great story for the food movement. Well, soil is a great mystery. You know, we don't really even understand soil. There are more living things in a teaspoon of soil than an acre of rainforest. You know, the soil really contains the microbes that are absolutely critical for our survival and for all the crops that we grow. Unfortunately, industrial agriculture, massive monoculturing, exhausts the soil. It destroys the soil. And with the pesticides, especially insecticides, but other things that we put, that also kills the microbes in the soil. And so we have been destroying topsoil at an alarming rate. We're exhausting topsoil at between 13 and 15 times the rate at which it can regenerate itself. So this is terrible in and of itself. Topsoil is one of the treasures of the earth. There's different kinds of topsoils all over the earth, by the way. We happen to have one of the best kinds in the United States. We're very lucky, you know, geographically, as a nation, to have this great topsoil that can be so productive. But we've abused it. We've overly exploited it through our monoculture, through our industrial agriculture, and so now we have a serious problem. So how have we addressed this problem of the exhaustion of topsoil? Synthetic fertilizers. This is a disaster because we know what that synthetic fertilizer does. We know it creates huge algae blooms, dead zones, destroys entire water systems. It can create massive water contamination. Synthetic fertilizers are a disaster, plus they contribute to nitrous oxide, which creates climate change. So we need the soil to survive. There's a whole wonderful regenerative movement right now across the country and across the world. Last year was a World Soil Year, and we got tremendous activism. I'm thankful to say that our own USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, which I'm not always happy with, is doing some great programs at soil remediation. There's some really great pioneering work being done all across the country, including, by the way, in Hawaii, where I've seen a lot of great work in California, all the way across the country to remediate soil and to let people understand that there's a difference between dirt and soil. You know, one of the, synonyms for earth is soil. So when we say protect the earth, remember, fundamentally it also means protecting our soil. You know, another incredibly important thing about soil is that it naturally sequesters carbon. This is really critical if we're going to address climate change, because we know we're going to have to stop burning fossil fuels. We know what we're going to have to stop doing to just stop this terrible juggernaut of climate change, right? Climate chaos, as I like to call it. We also know that we're going to have to start using green energy in replacement of that. But what about all that carbon out there? How are we going to get rid of that? The way to get rid of that is through soil. When we remediate soil, it actually sequesters the carbon. It takes the carbon out of the air, puts it in the ground, which means it is the best way. Is that, so if you think of a three-part stool with climate change, one part, stop the fossil fuel. Others, green energy. Third leg of the stool, remediate soil because it will sequester that carbon. It is the answer. We don't need crazy new technologies to get that carbon. We don't need to put saran wrap around the world or put iron in the oceans, all these things people are suggesting. It's nonsense. This whole geoengineering thing is very dangerous. But what we do need is to bioremediate soil, make our soils healthy again, and they'll take that carbon out. So that's an extraordinarily important, vital, crucial added advantage of making our soils healthy again. The critical thing with remediating soil is to create an environment where soil can have these microbes that it needs. And so this is the really critical aspect of composting. Composting, when I was recently in Africa, composting is a required course in Ethiopia, in grammar school and in high school. They understand it's enormous important. Every gardener out there knows it's important. We know it's very, very important to create that compost, to create the conditions under which soil and those microbes can get healthy and grow. And when they do that, we turn dirt into soil. And soil, again, has all that life that helps the plants grow. It's critical in the growth of plants. But also importantly, if we're right now having huge water shortages, not just in this country, around the world, soil also keeps water. It holds water. If you've ever seen a demonstration, you pour water over what we would call dirt, it goes right through. And that's when you get your flooding, that's when you get your waste, your water goes away. Soil holds that water. So just soil is just so magical. I mean, it's the answer to climate change. It's what we need to grow all the plants of the world. We all need, all the biotic community of the world needs it. And it helps us with our water situation. And I think it's also really interesting that we don't really quite even understand it yet. We don't really know what all those microbes are doing, which is why it's so terrible when we destroy so many of them through our pesticides, through our misuse of soil, because we don't even know what we're doing. We don't even know what we're killing. It's really critical that we understand, and we don't understand this. It has not been discussed by your major media at all. We are at the end of the age of extraction. The entire industrial system was built on going through, X million, 20 million, people, 200 million, depending, people aren't sure, but that many years it took to get these fossil fuels in the ground from the dinosaurs, from those ages. All that fossil fuel we went through in about 150 years. So it took 20 to 200 million years to build. We've been on a big spending spree, big party. We've gone through all of that in 150 years, put it all in the atmosphere, causing climate change. So it's been but the party's over. The party is over. And, what's happened is that all the low-hanging fruit, all the easy gas, coal, that's all gone. We could have always done deep water drilling. We could have always done mountaintop removal that we're seeing. We could always have done tar sands. We could always have done fracking, but they're expensive. They cause enormous environmental destructive. They're very, very dangerous, as we've all seen. And now that all that easy energy is gone, we're having to do these much more dramatic, we have to go to the much more difficult to find. And this is the end of this age. But again, two problems with it. One is, it isn't going to last. We're going to go through that. The second is, the less fossil fuel we have, the less of this energy we get, the more dramatic, the deeper we're going to have to go in the earth, the farther we're going to have to go in the ocean, the more dramatic we're going to have to do our fracking. And that is going to cause tremendous both human health harm, environmental harm, and climate change. And here's how it's going to happen. It's not that we're ever going to run out of gas or coal or oil. It's not going to happen. What's going to happen is it's going to cost more to get your gallon of gas than you're going to get out of it. So you're going to hit a market level. We're saying, you know what? It doesn't pay us anymore to do this. It's so dramatic, the technology and the energy we need, right? It just costs too much. And then even if a government says, we don't care, we're going to subsidize that, we don't care about the market, then you've got an energy issue. It's going to take more energy to get that unit of energy than you're getting out of it. So in other words, you can take more energy to get that gallon of gas or to get that pound of coal than you're going to get out of that. So we're never going to, this idea, when are we going to run out, is not the right question. The question is, when is it no longer going to be profitable? And then even if governments like China or ourselves were to subsidize it, when is it going to take more energy to get that energy out of the earth? And that will, Donald Trump, who keeps saying coal, 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 and the Republicans, drill, baby, drill, which is dumb, baby, dumb, they don't understand that by the time Barron Trump becomes his father's age, Donald Trump's son becomes his age, it's all over. And countries like Germany and others who are preparing this with green energy, it's going to be a soft landing. The more we stick to this dangerous, environmentally destructive, human health destructive technologies and stick to it stubbornly, we're going to have a very, very hard landing in the United States. Very hard landing unless we change course pretty quickly.